Commander Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the universe changed forever. He sat in the captain's chair of the human colony ship New Horizon, watching the stars through the main window. The ship was on a simple patrol mission in the outer edge of human space. Nothing exciting ever happened out here. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez sat at her station, checking the communication systems like she did every morning. She was the ship's expert on alien life forms, though she had never seen a real alien. Humans had been traveling in space for 50 years, but they had never met anyone else. Some people thought they were alone in the galaxy. Amy was about to turn off the radio when she heard something strange. At first, it sounded like static. Then she heard a pattern. It was not random noise. Someone was trying to talk. "Commander Morrison," Amy called out. "You need to hear this." Jake put down his coffee and walked over to Amy's station. "What is it?" "I think someone is trying to contact us, but it's not coming from any human ship." Jake felt his heart beat faster. "Play it." The voice that came through the speakers was unlike anything they had ever heard. It was deep and musical, like wind blowing through crystals. The words were in perfect English, but the accent was completely alien. "Unknown vessels of the third planet from the Yellow Star. We are the Zephyrian Confederation. We have watched your kind for many cycles. We know you fight amongst yourselves with great skill. We need that skill now. Our worlds are dying. The Void Swarm consumes everything in its path. We offer knowledge and technology in exchange for your warriors. Please respond if you receive this message. Time grows short." The bridge went completely silent. Jake stared at the radio as if it might bite him. Captain Ben Parker, who had been sleeping in his quarters, rushed onto the bridge in his pajamas. "What's happening?" Ben asked. "Amy, why did you wake me up?" "Sir, we just received a message from aliens," Amy said, her voice shaking. "They're asking for help." Ben's face went white. "Play it again." They listened to the message 3 more times. Each time, it became more real. There were other intelligent beings in the galaxy, and they were in trouble. "Amy, can you trace where this signal came from?" Ben asked. Amy worked at her computer for several minutes. "Yes, sir. It's coming from a star system about 40 light-years from here. The signal is very strong, which means they have powerful transmitters. Or they're very desperate," Jake added quietly. Ben nodded. "What else can you tell us about this void swarm they mentioned?" Amy pulled up more data. "I'm detecting other signals from the same area. Most of them are very weak, like emergency broadcasts. I can't understand the language, but the tone sounds scared." Dr. Kevin Walsh, the ship's scientist, had been listening quietly. "Commander, if these aliens have been watching us, they know about our history. They know about our wars." "What are you saying?" Ben asked. "I'm saying they didn't contact us because we're peaceful. They contacted us because we're good at fighting." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Human history was full of wars. In the past 100 years alone, they had fought 2 world wars, dozens of smaller conflicts, and even some battles in space between different colonies. Maybe that's what these aliens needed. "Can we respond to their signal?" Ben asked Amy. "Yes, sir. I can send a message back on the same frequency." Ben thought for a long moment. The New Horizon was just a small patrol ship with a crew of 50 people. They were not a military vessel, though they did have some weapons for protection. But if these aliens were offering advanced technology, it could change everything for humanity. "Send this message," Ben said. "This is Captain Ben Parker of the human vessel New Horizon. We received your distress call. We want to help, but we need more information. What is the Void Swarm? How many ships do you need? Where should we meet you?" Amy sent the message, and they waited. Space was huge, and even radio signals took time to travel between stars. They would have to wait hours for a response. While they waited, Ben called a meeting with his senior officers. Lieutenant Tony Martinez, the head of security, looked excited about the possibility of meeting aliens. Engineer Kate Sullivan was more worried about whether their ship could handle a long journey to alien space. "We need to think about this carefully," Ben said. "This could be the most important moment in human history. But it could also be very dangerous." "What if it's a trap?" Kate asked. "What if these aliens want to hurt us?" "What if it's real?" Tony replied. "What if we can save an entire civilization? What if they really do have advanced technology to share with us?" Jake had been quiet during the discussion, but now he spoke up. "There's something else to consider. If there's something out there that can destroy an advanced alien civilization, what happens when it comes looking for us?" That thought made everyone quiet. Earth was defenseless compared to aliens who could travel between stars and send messages across the galaxy. If the Void Swarm won against the Zephyrians, humans might be next. 4 hours later, Amy received a response. This time, the alien voice sounded even more desperate. "Captain Parker, we thank you for responding. The Void Swarm is a collection of living ships that consume all organic matter. They adapt to our weapons too quickly for us to fight them effectively. We have studied your species' military history. You fight in ways we do not understand. You use methods we consider primitive, but perhaps that is what we need. Come to the Kepler 442 system. We will send you coordinates and safe passage codes. Please hurry. We estimate we have less than 1 solar cycle before our remaining worlds fall." Ben looked around at his crew. He could see the mixture of fear and excitement in their eyes. This was bigger than anything any human had ever faced. "Set course for the Kepler 442 system," Ben ordered. "Maximum speed." As the New Horizon turned toward alien space, none of them knew they were about to change the galaxy forever. They thought they were going to save the Zephyrians from the Void Swarm. They had no idea they were bringing something much worse. The journey to Kepler 442 took 3 weeks. During that time, the crew of the New Horizon prepared for something no human had ever done before. They were going to meet aliens and possibly fight alongside them. General Lisa Hayes joined them halfway through the journey. Her military transport ship caught up with the New Horizon near the edge of human space. Lisa was one of the best military leaders humanity had ever produced. She had fought in the Mars Colony War and the Asteroid Belt conflicts. If anyone could help aliens win a war, it was her. "Captain Parker," Lisa said as she came aboard the New Horizon, "I've been studying everything we know about these Zephyrians. The government wants me to assess their military capabilities and decide if we can really help them. What do you think so far?" Ben asked. Lisa shook her head. "From what I can tell, they fight wars like a chess game. Very organized, very predictable. If this Void Swarm is as adaptable as they say, no wonder they're losing." Dr. Kevin Walsh had been analyzing the alien transmissions for weeks. He had learned a lot about Zephyrian technology and culture. "General, I think you need to see this," he said, showing her his computer screen. "I've been intercepting their military communications. They're planning their battles months in advance. They announce their attacks to the enemy before they begin." "They what?" Lisa stared at the screen in disbelief. "It appears to be part of their military code of honor," Kevin explained. "They believe it's wrong to attack without warning. They also avoid targeting civilian areas and try to minimize casualties on both sides." Lisa laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "No wonder they're getting destroyed. They're fighting a war like it's a sporting event." When the New Horizon finally reached the Kepler 442 system, they found a sight that took their breath away. The Zephyrian homeworld was beautiful beyond imagination. The planet was covered in crystal cities that sparkled like jewels in the sunlight. Tall spires reached toward the sky, connected by bridges that seemed to be made of light itself. But, even from space, they could see the damage. Parts of the planet were dark and lifeless. The Void Swarm had already consumed entire continents. The Zephyrians sent a small ship to escort the New Horizon. to their main spaceport. When the humans finally met their first aliens, they were amazed by what they saw. The Zephyrians were tall and graceful, standing nearly 8 feet high. Their skin looked like it was made of living crystal, changing colors based on their emotions. Their leader, Ambassador Kethver, glowed with a soft blue light that seemed to pulse with his heartbeat. "Welcome, humans," Kethver said in his musical voice. "We are grateful you came so quickly. Every day we delay, more of our people die." Captain Parker stepped forward. "We want to help, but we need to understand what we're fighting." Kethver led them to a large chamber where holographic displays showed the progress of the war. The images were terrifying. The Void Swarm looked like a collection of living ships, each one different from the others. They moved through space, like a school of hungry fish, consuming everything in their path. "They arrived in our galaxy 50 cycles ago," Kethver explained. "At first, we thought they were just another spacefaring species, looking for new homes. We tried to communicate with them, to offer them empty worlds to settle on." "What happened?" Amy asked. "They consumed our messenger ships, and everyone on them. Then they began attacking our outer colonies. At first, our weapons worked well against them. We destroyed many of their vessels. But then something changed." The holographic display showed a battle between Zephyrian ships and the Void Swarm. The alien weapons cut through the swarm vessels like paper. But then the image changed to show the same battle a few days later. This time, the Zephyrian weapons barely scratched the swarm ships. "They learn," Kethver said sadly. "Every weapon we use against them, they adapt to within days. Our energy weapons are now completely useless. Our missiles cannot penetrate their hulls. We have tried everything we know." General Hayes studied the tactical displays with growing excitement. "Show me your current battle plans." Kethver brought up another hologram. It showed Zephyrian fleets approaching swarm positions in perfect formation. Every ship knew exactly where it was supposed to be and what it was supposed to do. The attack patterns were beautiful and elegant. "This is garbage," Lisa said bluntly. The Zephyrians looked shocked. Their crystal skin flashed red with anger or embarrassment. "General Hayes," Captain Parker warned. "No, let me explain," Lisa continued. "Your formations are perfect, your tactics are flawless, and your strategies are completely predictable. Any enemy that studies you for 5 minutes will know exactly what you're going to do next." Sergeant Tony Martinez nodded in agreement. "Where I come from, we have a saying, no plan survives contact with the enemy. You have to be ready to change everything at a moment's notice." Dr. Walsh was examining samples of destroyed swarm vessels. "General, you need to see this. These creatures aren't just adapting to energy weapons. They're adapting to the entire concept of organized warfare." "What do you mean?" Lisa asked. "Look at their hull structure. It's designed to absorb and redirect energy attacks. But it's also designed to resist precision strikes. They've evolved to fight against opponents who aim for specific weak points." Lisa studied the samples and began to smile. It was not a nice smile. "So they've adapted to fight against civilized enemies who follow rules." "That appears to be correct," Kevin confirmed. "Then it's time they met an uncivilized enemy who breaks all the rules." Major Chris Taylor, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. "General, I've been studying their defensive positions around this planet. They have beautiful shields and elegant point defense systems, but I don't see any anti-personnel weapons. Meaning, they've never had to deal with boarding parties, sabotage, or ground combat. They fight their wars in space, like gentlemen." General Hayes turned to Ambassador Kethver. "We'll help you, but you're not going to like how we do it. Human warfare is ugly, brutal, and unfair. We don't announce our attacks. We don't avoid civilian targets if they're militarily useful. And we definitely don't fight fair." Kethver's crystal skin pulsed with uncertainty. "We are desperate enough to try anything, but we must ask that you minimize harm to innocent civilians." "I'll do my best," Lisa replied. But I can't promise anything. In war, innocent people die. That's just how it works. The Zephyrians looked uncomfortable with this answer, but they had no choice. Their civilization was dying, and the humans were their only hope. Engineer Kate Sullivan was already making plans. General, if these swarm creatures adapt to energy weapons, what about kinetic weapons, old-fashioned bullets, and explosives? That's exactly what I was thinking, Lisa said. We need to contact Earth immediately. Tell them to send every warship we have, along with as much primitive ammunition as they can carry. As the meeting continued, none of the Zephyrians noticed the look in the humans' eyes. It was the look of predators who had just found perfect prey. The Void Swarm had adapted to fight civilized species, but humanity was about to show them what uncivilized warfare looked like, and once the humans started winning, they might not want to stop. 2 weeks after the first meeting, the human fleet arrived at Kepler 442. It was not the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled, but it was definitely the strangest. Along with modern warships came old vessels that had been pulled out of museums and military junkyards. Colonel Ryan Brooks commanded the assault fleet from his flagship, a converted cargo hauler called the Iron Fist. The ship looked like junk compared to the elegant Zephyrian vessels, but it carried something the aliens had never seen before: crude, primitive weapons designed for one purpose only: to kill everything in their path. General Hayes, Ryan said over the communication system, my boys are ready to show these bugs what real warfare looks like. The Zephyrians watched in horror as the human ships took position around their planet. Instead of the beautiful formations they were used to, the human vessels spread out randomly. Some ships hid behind asteroids, others powered down their engines, and drifted silently through space. A few even painted themselves black to become invisible against the darkness. Ambassador Kethfer stood on the bridge of the New Horizon with Captain Parker and General Hayes. His crystal skin flickered with nervous colors as he watched the human preparations. I do not understand your strategy, Kethfer said. Your ships appear to be scattered and disorganized. How will you coordinate your attack? We won't, Lisa replied simply. Each ship captain has basic orders, but they're free to attack however they want. The enemy can't predict what we're going to do, because we don't know what we're going to do. Engineer Kate Sullivan had been working day and night with the human tech teams. She had created weapons that horrified the Zephyrians. Instead of clean energy beams, the humans had built massive cannons that fired chunks of metal at incredible speeds. They had developed chemical explosives that could melt through any material. Most disturbing of all, they had created biological weapons designed to eat organic matter. Kate, show our allies what you've been working on. General Hayes said. Kate activated a holographic display that showed her newest creation. It looked like a simple metal tube, but the Zephyrians gasped when they saw what it could do. This is a kinetic penetrator, Kate explained. It's just a big piece of metal fired from a magnetic cannon. No energy signature, no complex technology, nothing for the swarm to adapt to. It punches holes through anything. But how does it work without energy weapons? Kethfer asked. Physics, Kate said with a grin. You accelerate a heavy object to a significant fraction of light speed, and it hits with the force of a small nuclear bomb. The swarm can adapt to our technology, but they can't adapt to the laws of physics. Dr. Kevin Walsh had been studying captured swarm specimens. His research had led to weapons that made even the humans uncomfortable. General, I've finished analyzing their biological structure. These creatures are essentially living ships, which means they're vulnerable to biological attacks. What kind of biological attacks? Lisa asked. Kevin's smile was cold and scientific. I've developed a virus that causes rapid cellular breakdown. It spreads through physical contact and kills a swarm creature within hours. The beautiful part is that their adaptive abilities actually work against them. The more they try to fight the virus, the faster it kills them. Ambassador Kethver's skin turned pale white. You have created a plague weapon. I've created a solution, Kevin replied. This virus only affects swarm biology. It's harmless to everyone else. But what if it mutates? What if it begins affecting other forms of life? Kevin shrugged. Then we'll deal with that problem when it happens. Right now, we have bigger concerns. The first battle began 3 days later. A swarm scouting force of 12 ships approached the Zephyrian homeworld, expecting to face the usual organized resistance. Instead, they found Chaos. Commander Alex Stone led the attack from his ship, an old destroyer called the Savage. Instead of announcing his intentions like the Zephyrians always did, he simply opened fire without warning. The swarm ships immediately began adapting to the energy weapons fired by the Zephyrian vessels supporting the attack. Their hulls shifted and changed, becoming resistant to laser beams and plasma bolts within minutes. Then the humans opened fire. The first kinetic round punched through a swarm ship like it was made of paper. The creature inside died instantly. Its biological components splattered across space. The other swarm vessels tried to adapt their hulls to resist kinetic impact, but physics doesn't care about adaptation. A piece of metal moving at half the speed of light will destroy anything it hits. Within 20 minutes, all 12 swarm ships were dead. The Zephyrians watched the battle in stunned silence. They had never seen anything die so quickly or so violently. The human weapons didn't just destroy the enemy ships, they completely obliterated them. Excellent work, Alex, General Hayes said over the radio. How much ammunition did you use? About 2% of our supply, General. These bugs are tougher than expected, but not tough enough. The victory celebration was short. Long-range sensors detected a massive swarm fleet approaching the system. More than 300 ships were heading their way, including some of the largest vessels ever seen. This is it, Ambassador Kethver said quietly. This is the main swarm force. If they take this system, our civilization is finished. Colonel Brooks studied the sensor readings with growing excitement rather than fear. General Hayes, request permission to implement Protocol 7. Lisa paused. Protocol 7 was something they had hoped never to use. It involved weapons so terrible that they had been banned on Earth after the colony wars. Ryan, are you sure? That's necessary. Ma'am, we're facing an enemy that adapts to everything we throw at them. We need to hit them with so many different types of attacks at once that their adaptation can't keep up. Protocol 7 gives us that capability. General Hayes looked at the Zephyrian ambassador. Kethver, what I'm about to authorize will save your people, but you're going to hate us for it. These weapons cross lines that civilized species don't cross. What kind of weapons? Kethver asked nervously. Biological warfare, chemical weapons, radiation bombs, planet killers. Things that don't just destroy the enemy, but make sure nothing can ever live in the same space again. Kethver's skin flashed through a dozen different colors as he struggled with the decision. Finally, it settled on a deep, sad blue. Do what you must, but please remember that we asked you to save us, not to become us. I'll remember, Lisa said, but her eyes were already focused on the approaching enemy fleet. For the first time since joining the military, she was going to fight an enemy without any rules or restrictions. It felt remarkably liberating, as the human fleet prepared for the largest space battle in galactic history. None of them noticed that they were changing. The violence was becoming easier. The weapons were becoming more creative, and the line between protecting the Zephyrians and conquering them was beginning to blur. The Void Swarm had adapted to fight civilized enemies, but they were about to learn that humanity had never been civilized at all. The battle for Kepler 442 lasted 18 hours and changed the galaxy forever. When it was over, the Void Swarm was completely destroyed, but something else had died with them, the Zephyrians' faith in their saviors. It started like the humans planned. Colonel Brooks unleashed Protocol 7 against the approaching swarm fleet. 300 alien ships faced an attack unlike anything they had ever encountered. Kinetic weapons punched holes through their hulls, while chemical weapons melted their organic components. Biological viruses spread through their formations, causing ships to die from the inside out. But the humans didn't stop there. Captain Dale Henderson commanded a group of fast attack ships that hunted down individual swarm vessels trying to escape. Instead of simply destroying them, Dale's crews captured the creatures alive. They wanted to study how the adaptation process worked. Henderson to base. Dale reported after the main battle ended. "We've got 15 live specimens in containment. Dr. Walsh wants to run some experiments." Ambassador Kethver listened to this conversation with growing alarm. Experiments? What kind of experiments? Dr. Kevin Walsh had set up a laboratory on one of the captured Zephyrian space stations. When Kethver arrived to see what the humans were doing, he found something that would haunt him forever. The swarm creatures were held in transparent cells, kept alive but unable to move. Kevin was injecting them with different chemicals and recording how quickly they adapted to each poison. Some of the creatures had been suffering for hours. "This is torture," Kethver said, his crystal skin flashing angry red colors. "These beings are suffering beings," Kevin replied, without looking up from his work. "They're weapons. Living weapons that have killed billions of your people. I'm learning how to make better weapons to kill them. But the war is over. You destroyed their entire fleet." Kevin finally looked at the Zephyrian ambassador. His smile was cold and scientific. "This fleet was just a scouting force. Our long-range sensors have detected 17 more swarm fleets in nearby systems. We're going to hunt down every single one of them. Hunt them down. Complete extinction," Kevin said matter-of-factly. "We're going to make sure the Void Swarm never threatens anyone ever again." Dr. Rachel Kim had joined Kevin's research team and was developing new weapons based on what they learned from the experiments. Her creations made the original human weapons look gentle by comparison. "Kevin, look at this," Rachel said excitedly. She showed him a small device that looked like a metal spider, self-replicating nanobots designed specifically to consume swarm tissue. "Once we release these into a swarm ship, they'll multiply and eat everything organic within hours." "Will they stop after consuming the swarm creatures?" Kethver asked nervously. Rachel shrugged. "Probably. We programmed them to only eat swarm DNA, but artificial life can be unpredictable. There's a small chance they might evolve to consume other organic matter." "How small a chance?" "Maybe 10%. But don't worry. If that happens, we can always make nanobots designed to eat the first nanobots." Kethver stared at her in horror. These humans were creating weapons that could potentially destroy all life in the galaxy, and they talked about it like they were discussing the weather. The hunting of the remaining swarm fleets began immediately. General Hayes divided the human forces into smaller groups and sent them to different star systems. Each group had orders to completely destroy any swarm presence they found. What happened next horrified the Zephyrians, who went along as observers. Captain Stone's fleet found a swarm breeding ground on a dead planet in the Rigel system. Instead of simply destroying the facility, the humans decided to test their new weapons. They released the nanobots into the swarm hatchery and watched as millions of young creatures died in agony. "This is unnecessary," protested Veltar, a military observer. "You could have destroyed this facility with a single missile, but then we wouldn't learn anything," Stone replied. "We need to understand how these creatures breed so we can prevent them from ever doing it again. The nanobots did their job perfectly. Too perfectly. After consuming all the swarm creatures, they began eating the planet's soil and rock, looking for trace amounts of organic matter. Within days, the entire world was nothing but gray dust." "Oops," Dr. Kim said when she saw the reports. "We might need to adjust the programming." Colonel Brooks found another swarm fleet hiding in an asteroid field. This time, the aliens tried to surrender. They broadcast messages in mathematical patterns that clearly indicated submission and a desire to communicate. "Colonel, they're trying to surrender," reported Lieutenant Sam Carter from the communications station. "I can see that," Brooks replied. "Fire all weapons, sir. They're trying to surrender." Brooks turned to look at his communications officer. "Lieutenant, did these creatures accept surrender when they were destroying Zephyrian worlds?" "No, sir, but then we don't accept theirs either. Extinction means extinction. Fire all weapons." The swarm ships died without firing a shot. Back on the Zephyrian homeworld, the human presence was growing larger every day. What had started as a temporary military base was becoming a permanent settlement. General Hayes had authorized the construction of mining facilities to extract resources needed for the war effort. General Hayes, Ambassador Kethver said during one of their meetings, "We appreciate your help, but some of your activities concern us. Why are you mining our planets?" "We need raw materials to build more weapons," Lisa replied. "The war effort requires enormous resources, but you are taking materials from our most sacred sites. The Crystal Valleys have been holy to our people for thousands of years. They're also the richest source of rare metals in this system. We need those metals to build the nanobots that are saving your species." Kethver's skin flickered with frustrated colors. Surely there are other sources of these materials. "Not as convenient," Lisa said bluntly. "Look, Ambassador, you asked us to save your people. That's what we're doing. But saving you requires resources, and resources have to come from somewhere." More human ships arrived every week. They brought colonists, miners, and engineers. The humans claimed they needed these people to support the war effort, but Kethvar noticed they were building permanent structures rather than temporary facilities. President Frank Davis arrived with the latest group of colonists. He was not a military leader, but a civilian administrator. His job was to establish what the humans called interim governance over the liberated territories. Ambassador Ketchivar, Frank said during their first meeting, "I want to assure you that Earth has no intention of conquering your worlds. We're simply here to help you rebuild after the war." "Rebuild according to whose plans?" Kethver asked. "Well, naturally we want to help you build more efficient systems. Your old government was clearly unable to defend against the swarm threat. We can help you create something stronger. What if we prefer our old systems?" Frank smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm sure we can find a compromise that works for everyone." The compromise, it turned out, meant that humans would make all the important decisions, while Zephyrians would be allowed to handle minor local issues. The Zephyrian Council was dissolved and replaced with a human Zephyrian advisory board. The board had 12 members, 10 humans, and 2 Zephyrians. 6 months after the first battle, the last swarm fleet was destroyed in a distant galaxy. The threat that had terrified the Zephyrians for decades was completely eliminated. The humans had kept their promise. They had saved the Zephyrian Confederation. But as Ambassador Kethver looked out at his homeworld, now covered with human settlements and mining operations, he wondered if they had simply traded one destroyer for another. The Void Swarm had wanted to consume their bodies. The humans seemed content to consume their souls. 1 year after the last swarm ship died, Ambassador Kethver stood in what used to be the Grand Assembly Hall of the Zephyrian Confederation. The beautiful crystal walls had been replaced with human steel and plastic. The hall now served as the headquarters for the Terran Protectorate, humanity's new government for this region of space. Governor Jake Morrison sat behind a desk where the Zephyrian Council had once made decisions for their entire civilization. The same Jake Morrison, who had been a simple patrol ship commander when he first received the alien distress call. Now he wore an expensive suit and controlled the fate of billions of beings. "Ambassador," Jake said without looking up from his paperwork, "I've reviewed your request to relocate some of your people back to the Crystal Valleys. I'm afraid that's not possible at this time." "Why not?" Kethver asked. The mining operations in that region are complete. The land is empty. Now, the land is contaminated with industrial chemicals. It wouldn't be safe for your people to live there. Kethver's skin flashed frustrated orange. Then clean it up. That would be very expensive. The Protectorate budget doesn't currently include environmental restoration projects. What does the budget include? Jake finally looked up. Security. We need to maintain a strong military presence to protect you from future threats. There could be other hostile species out there. What threats? You exterminated the Void Swarm completely. Which is exactly why we need to stay vigilant. Our intelligence suggests there may be swarm survivor colonies in distant galaxies. We need to be ready to respond to any threat. Keth knew this was nonsense. The human military had spent months making sure every swarm creature was dead. They had been very thorough about it, but arguing with Jake was pointless. The humans had all the weapons and all the power. Admiral Susan Clark commanded the Terran fleet from her flagship, a massive warship called the Dominion. The ship orbited the Zephyrian homeworld like a constant reminder of who was really in charge. Susan had been promoted 5 times since the war ended. Her success in the Swarm campaign had made her one of the most powerful people in human space. Admiral Clark, her aide reported, "We're receiving reports of unrest on Zephyrian Colony 7. Some of the locals are refusing to work in the new manufacturing facilities." How many locals? About 3,000, ma'am. They're claiming the working conditions are unsafe and the pay is too low. Susan sighed. Send a security team to explain the situation to them. Make sure they understand that cooperation is in everyone's best interest. The security team was led by Major Chris Taylor, who had learned to enjoy the power that came with occupation duty. The Zephyrians were physically weak compared to humans, and their peaceful culture made them easy to intimidate. Listen carefully, Chris told the assembled Zephyrian workers. You have jobs because we allow you to have jobs. You live on this planet because we allow you to live here. If you don't want to work in our factories, we can arrange for you to live somewhere else. Where else? Asked one of the Zephyrian leaders, a female named Lara. There are some nice empty planets in the outer systems. No facilities, no technology, no contact with the rest of the galaxy, but very peaceful. The threat was clear. Work in the human factories, or be exiled to primitive worlds where they would slowly die of starvation and isolation. The Zephyrians went back to work. Dr. Rachel Kim had been promoted to head of Protectorate Research and Development. Her laboratory was now the size of a small city, and she had unlimited funding to develop new weapons and technologies. She had perfected the nanobots that had destroyed the planet in the Rigel system, and was working on even more creative ways to eliminate threats to human expansion. Rachel, General Hayes said during one of their meetings, I need you to develop something that can pacify large populations without killing them. What kind of pacification? Something that makes them more cooperative, more willing to accept human authority. Rachel smiled. I've been working on exactly that. A neurochemical agent that can be introduced into water supplies. It reduces aggressive impulses and increases compliance with authority figures. Side effects: some reduction in creativity and independent thinking. But that might actually be a benefit, considering our goals. How soon can you have it ready? Give me 6 months. I'll need to test it on some volunteers first. I'm sure we can find volunteers, Lisa said. The way she said it made it clear that the volunteers wouldn't have much choice in the matter. President Frank Davis had been busy establishing what he called economic partnerships with former Zephyrian territories. These partnerships meant that human companies would develop the resources and infrastructure of alien worlds in exchange for a small percentage of the profits going to local governments. The small percentage turned out to be about 5%. This is theft, Kethver protested during one of their meetings. You are stealing our world's resources and giving us almost nothing in return. That's not true, Frank replied calmly. We're providing security, technology, and jobs. Your people have never been safer or more prosperous. Our people are working as slaves in your factories. They're working as employees. They receive fair wages according to galactic market standards. Standards you set. Standards we established, based on careful economic analysis. Look, Ambassador, I understand change is difficult. But your old system couldn't protect you from the swarm. Our system can protect you from anything, by making us into something we never wanted to be. Frank's smile faded. Ambassador, you called us for help. We came. We saved you. Now we're helping you build a better civilization. If you don't appreciate that help, perhaps you'd prefer to handle your own affairs. The threat was subtle but clear. The humans could leave anytime they wanted, taking all their technology and protection with them. The Zephyrians would be defenseless against any future threats. Kethver had no choice but to smile and thank Frank for his generous offer of continued protection on Earth. The news reports called it the greatest humanitarian mission in human history. Brave human soldiers had traveled across the galaxy to save an entire alien civilization from extinction. The war against the Void Swarm was taught in schools as an example of human courage and generosity. Nobody mentioned that the Zephyrian Confederation no longer existed. Nobody talked about the mining operations that had destroyed sacred sites. Nobody discussed the work camps where aliens labored to build human settlements. The story that reached Earth was simple. Humans had saved the aliens, and now they were helping them build a better society. Ambassador Kethver made one final attempt to contact other civilizations in the galaxy. Using a hidden transmitter in the old council chambers, he sent out a desperate warning to anyone who might be listening. This is Ambassador Kethver of the former Zephyrian Confederation. If you are receiving this message, you must understand the truth about the human species. We called them for help when the Void Swarm threatened our worlds. They came, and they saved us from destruction. But they did not save us from conquest. They are not destroyers like the Swarm. They are something worse. They are consumers. They do not kill civilizations. They absorb them. They take everything you are and make it part of what they are. If you ever receive a distress call from these humans, do not answer it. If they offer to help you, refuse. If they promise to protect you, run as far and as fast as you can. We asked for salvation and received annihilation. The only difference is that we are still alive to regret it. The transmission was intercepted by human monitoring stations within minutes. Admiral Clark personally led the security team that arrested Kethver for spreading seditious propaganda and threatening galactic security. He was never seen again. Governor Morrison stood on the balcony of his new palace, built on the ruins of the old Zephyrian Council building. The view was magnificent. Human cities stretched to the horizon, their lights twinkling like stars. Ships moved constantly between the planets, carrying resources and people throughout the Terran Protectorate. It was beautiful and efficient and profitable. Captain Ben Parker, now promoted to Admiral, joined Morrison on the balcony. Jake, I sometimes wonder if we did the right thing. We saved an entire species from extinction, Jake replied. How could that be wrong? Did we save them, or did we just give them a different kind of extinction? Jake considered this for a moment. Does it matter? They're alive, they're safe, and they're productive. That's more than they would have had if the swarm had won. I suppose you're right. Of course I'm right. And even if I'm wrong, it's too late to change anything now. Ben nodded and walked away, leaving Jake alone with his thoughts and his view of the conquered galaxy. In the distance, human exploration ships were already heading toward new star systems, carrying the same message that had once seemed so hopeful. We are here to help. We offer protection and cooperation. Please respond if you receive this message. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, other civilizations were learning to fear the sound of that offer.